everyone, welcome back to While You Were Cleaning. Today I have some Dollar Tree decor DIYs to share with you. We are kind of in that time of the year where we're between fall DIYs and Christmas DIYs. I do have a ton of Christmas DIYs that I'm going to be bringing to you. I'm going to get in as many as I can before Christmas. So I do have those videos coming soon for you. But in today's video, I wanted to share with you some DIYs that are neutral decor items. Items that you can use year-round, no matter what other holidays are happening. You can keep these items out year-round and add them to your decor. So hopefully you'll see what I'm talking about as you see today's different DIYs, and I hope that today's video is very helpful for you. I did want to make sure that I bring this video to you now because one of the supplies that I am using in today's video is something that's out with the Halloween items right now. So that's why I'm doing this video now, and I hope that it is very helpful for you. So if you enjoyed today's video, please hit that like button, please comment and subscribe, and we'll go ahead and get into these DIYs. For my first set of DIYs, you'll need some hurricane vases. I got these two different sizes from Dollar Tree. And then for the first hurricane vase, we are going to be using some of this wood grain contact paper on it. You can get wood grain contact paper in two different colors from Dollar Tree. I want the print on this contact paper to run vertical up and down my vase. So I laid it out that way, set the vase on top, and then cut so I had about 1.5 inches extra on each end of the vase, and then cut off my contact paper. Next, you'll need to trim down the contact paper so it can wrap around the vase with about 1/2 inch extra for overlap. Contact paper can sometimes be a little bit tricky to work with, but on this glass vase, it's very easy to pull it back off the vase and work out any bubbles if you need to. So for my next step, I peeled back the paper from the contact paper about 3 inches and then started it going on my vase. Next, I peeled off the rest of the paper from the contact portion of the paper, and I stuck that onto my table so it would stay nice and taut and straight, and this helps keep the bubbles out. And then I just smoothed down the contact paper onto my vase just a little bit at a time, making sure that there were no bubbles. And I did have to pull it back a few times just to make sure that there were no bubbles in there, but it ended up being pretty smooth. Next, I took the contact paper on the top part of my vase and I folded that down inside of the vase and smoothed it around the edges. You could cut this into a little bit smaller sections so you can put down one small section at a time, but it went pretty smooth putting down the whole section at once. And then on the bottom of the vase, I did cut it into about 1.5 to 2 inch sections, and I folded down the first half of the section and then kind of folded over the little second half of the section on top of that a little bit. I just wanted it to be very smooth on the bottom of this vase so that it's not wobbly. For my taller hurricane vase, I used this rust-oleum flat black spray paint, and I spray painted just the top portion of the vase. I'm going to be covering that bottom part, so I mostly did about the top 2/3 or 3/4 of the vase. And then on the bottom of the vase, I'm going to be using this cork board that you can get in these sheets at Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut this in half. I measured up 4 inches from the edge all the way across, and then I cut it right down the middle. And then I'm going to be using the 4-inch portion of this that's a little bit wider. The other side is about 1/2 inch shorter. So I'm going to use the 4-inch portion, and I'm going to see how long that needs to be in order to wrap around the bottom of my vase. So I marked that. I measured up from that side, which ended up being 1 inch for this vase. So I measured up across that so that I knew where that 1 inch mark was, and then I cut across that line. Next, I removed the paper from the back of this cork piece, which this piece is very sticky. So once you get it on your vase, it is not coming back off. So make sure you get it in the right place the first time. Next project, I'll be using this cup that I found out with the Christmas items. I needed something with straight edges, and I'll be spray painting this inside and outside with this Rust-Oleum Ultra Matte spray paint in white, and you can still just barely see the print on the side of the cup. On this cup, I'm going to be using 3 packages of these eyeballs. They come 12 in a pack. I used just a few less than 3 packages, and I use those extras on something later on in the video, but I'm going to be adding glue to the back of each of these eyeballs, and then I glued them in place on this glass all the way around the bottom rim of it. I am going to be painting these, so the eyeball portion of these little ping pong balls or whatever they might be, they're a little bit smaller than the ping pong balls, but I face the eyeball out because it is the smoothest part of these. On the back of them they have some print, and then on the other edges they have kind of a rim where you can see that they were manufactured and put together. So I did the eyeballs facing out, and I did 3 layers of this, and I staggered the layers just a little bit so that they fit together really well. You can see here how it turns out with all of them hot glued in place. Next, I took this little creation outside and I spray painted it with 2 coats of this Rust-Oleum flat white primer, and this is to help cover up those eyeballs. And then after those 2 coats dried, I went back over it with this Rust-Oleum Ultra Matte white spray paint, and I did 2 coats of that as well, and that covered up the eyeballs. And here you get to see how all 3 of those projects turned out. This smaller one, I made a candle holder and put a small candle from Dollar Tree inside of there. And then I really love how this wood grain hurricane vase turned out, and I just added some floral to that one, and then also added some floral to the top of this taller hurricane vase that has the black and the cork sheet added to it. I think out of these 3, the candle holder is my absolute favorite. For the next project, I'm going to be making a tier tray using 2 of these large flat metal baskets, and then you'll also need 4 of the wooden dowels. These are the 12-inch dowels, and then you'll also need several small zip ties. So I'm going to zip tie these dowels in place, and I'm going to place the first one along the short edge, just right at that first metal rung. I'm going to put the zip tie over the metal rung and then around the rung, and then pull it nice and tight around the dowel. So hopefully that makes sense. You just want to make sure you hold the top of the dowel in place. And then next, I'm going to go ahead and use a second zip tie on this same place, and that'll really help to hold these nice and straight. And you only want to put this one down just a small amount, otherwise it's going to pull the dowel crooked, since the wire on the basket kind of angles out a little bit. So you don't want these dowels to angle out, you want them to go straight up. I repeated this on all 4 corners of the bottom basket and then trimmed off the zip ties. Next, I took my second metal basket and turned it upside down, and then that basket that I was just working on, turned that upside down as well, and then I started zip tying the dowels to that bottom, which is actually the top basket, and I zip tied those on the second rung in on each side this time. So the dowels are just a little bit angled inward when they're going up to that second basket. Here you can see how that looks. On the bottom, they are zip tied to the first rung in, and then on the top, they are zip tied to the second rung in, and they have a little bit of an angle in to them. Next, I took this tier tray outside and I spray painted it with this Rust-Oleum flat black spray paint. If you love the gold look of this, you could spray paint it gold again, or you could just spray paint the dowels and leave the baskets gold, just your zip ties might stand out. So here's how the tier tray looks. I was a little bit disappointed that I wasn't able to find any of the tier trays at Target this year, so I thought I would just make my own, and this is how it turned out, and I really love the way it turned out. I wouldn't put anything too heavy on that top basket, but as you can see, it's not moving with these items here that I have up there, and they're not super light. Next, we are going to put together a large beaded garland using these eyeballs. I used 3 packages of these, plus I added in the 6 extra that I had from the project I did earlier in the video. All of these eyeballs already have a hole on one edge of them, just from the way that they were made. So I used a drill and a small drill bit, started from that hole, and just continued the hole straight through to the other side of the eyeball. I repeated this step on all 42 of the eyeballs, which didn't take too long. These are a little bit sturdier than the ping pong balls from Dollar Tree, which I've added holes in before, so it was easier to work with. Next, I used some of this cotton twine that you can find in the hardware section at Dollar Tree, and then also a small piece of floral wire. So I made a loop at the end of the twine, and then I added my wire through there. I spun my wire up the other wire and then turned it, went back down and around the twine, trying to hold it in place without making a knot in the twine. So I did this so that it would fit through the holes that I made on these eyeballs. You could make the eyeballs larger if you wanted to tie a knot in the twine instead. You could also use a needle and thread and make this even easier, but I was just trying to use what I already had so that I could string these together. Looking back, I might have put these onto a dowel piece so I could spray paint just the eyeball side of them first, but I didn't do that. I strung them up, hung them up, and then I spray painted them a couple coats of that white primer, and then went back over them with this rust-oleum ultra matte white spray paint. And I had to do several coats of this to get those eyeballs because I just had to keep spinning the balls around to make sure that they were covered. Next, I used some of the cotton twine and a card that was about 3 inches long, and I wrapped the twine around the card lengthwise several times so that I could make some tassels. And you've probably seen me make tassels before. They're pretty simple to put together. I cut an extra small piece so that I could tie the tassel together at the top, and I did this with a nice tight knot, and then I spun that knot underneath the tassel so you wouldn't see the knot part of it. And then I cut the bottom part of the tassel so that it was open, and then I used another piece of twine and wrapped it around about a ½ inch down from the top of this tassel and tied that nice and tight as well. And I just trimmed off a little bit extra from the bottom of these so that they were straight. I made 2 of these tassels and then I tied them to each end of my garland. I really love the way that this garland turned out. You can use it as an accent piece like I'm showing you here. You could also hang it up across a shelf or a fireplace. It has a lot of options. Those are all of the neutral decor items that I have to show you in today's video. Let me know down in the comments which of these was your favorite DIY. Thank you all so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!